Critical Conversations, episode 10,
10 or 11. One of the
10 or
two.
11. We're getting into that range where I no longer can remember off the top of my head.
Yep.
Which means it's been going a little bit.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's like 10 weeks is a long time to be doing something. So
yeah, I know. We started this a while back. So yeah, welcome back. If it's your first time, good to have you here for the first time. Critical Conversations is an effort to have better conversations regarding politics, current events, news, hold ourselves accountable to be responsible consumers, and have important dialogues that I think we're having a hard time having as a nation. So we're working on that. And my name is Sam Castles, my co-host Jared Bessie, as always. Okay. It's good to have you back.
Yes, good to be here.
What are we talking about today, Jared?
So we're going to do a little bit of some election bullet points as we're getting really close. So we're recording this on Thursday, as we usually do, and the election's in 5 days.
5 days.
So it is coming up fast.
Yeah. By the time we're publishing this, it'll be 2 days away, or 3 days, depending on how you count it.
Yeah, exactly. So very soon. So we just want to talk about a little bit where the polls are at. I mentioned a couple things last week, but we just wanted to do a briefer episode today and just kind of look where we're at, look what's going to happen, maybe talk through some different scenarios, talk a little bit about polling in general, and go from there.
Yeah, a little preview. Everyone's got opinions. I'm personally really excited to see how it shakes out, and it's on everyone's mind, I guess. What's going to happen?
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. All right, do you want to give us some basic polling numbers of where we're at right now?
Yeah, so I'm going to just
change even since last week. So
yes, true. I'm going to go ahead and jump and share my screen here. This is basically 538's election tracker. We've talked about this on the show before. It's something that I like checking, and I think they do a good job of sort of not just looking at national polling, but breaking down all of the state polling and historically looking at where the margin of error is, and using that as a statistical way to interpret what are the possible scenarios where we can get either candidate to 270. So this is the current count, and it has Biden way up 89 to 11. And again, I know a lot of people are quick to not trust the polls, and I understand that sentiment. I think a lot of America is there right now. So obviously this is based on polling, and your opinions on polling is going to affect that. And, experts might have different opinions, and it's quite a mess, isn't it, Jared?
Yeah, I was just thinking, we were just listening, talking about like why we should trust polls or why we shouldn't trust polls. And 538 has been very bullish on Trump since the beginning, especially in 2016, if you go back, compared to a lot of other media sites. And, I think pretty much everyone, myself included, thought in 2016 it was going to be pretty sure one way or the other. And obviously that was not the case. Trump pulled the upset. But 538 had him at 30% chance, which is not that unlikely. Now, at an 11% chance, that is significantly less.
Right.
So definitely interesting to compare that. And I think while a lot of people still don't, may not trust polls because of 2016 and because they were told by the media so often that they were going to, Trump was going to lose, that they're hesitant to say that one way or the other this time. But I think these polls are much stronger than they were in 2016.
So absolutely. Yeah. The polling, it's always has a chance to be wrong or in one direction, but they've definitely worked on what they got wrong in 2016. And the polling has been pretty steady. There's been a few outliers here and there, but these are all, again, based on averages. So not a lock, but definitely a good picture.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the actual map. We can start here.
I like the snake map a lot. So
yeah. I'm going to also pull up 270 to win.
Okay, yeah, that's great. So as a reminder for people that aren't super political, 270 electoral votes is what you need to take the presidency.
Yep.
So that's based on the polling or based on the voting in your state. The Electoral College then votes. So it's, each state has a certain amount, and then they're the ones that actually vote on who's president, not the person. And so when you get 270, you win the election. So yeah, that's why you see like what all those numbers mean.
Right. Yeah.
So 270 to win's a cool site where they have like lots of cool maps that you can play around with. And
absolutely. Yeah. So we just wanted to break down a few possible scenarios. Obviously, Biden is ahead in the polling, but there are some scenarios where Trump could win, and we just wanted to talk about what those would look like. And
11% chance isn't nothing. Like that's
right, exactly.
Not a 0.02% chance, right? Like it's 11's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people will talk about like thinking about poker or some other odds or cards game to sort of give a good picture for what it's like. And I do think poker, I mean, is a really good example. It's like when you're down and that last card's being flipped and you're in this scenario where I have to get a pair of kings or something. I have to see a king come up and, there's maybe 13 cards out there and you need the one card.
Right.
And yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. But we all know that sometimes that king shows up. So
yeah, exactly right. Sometimes it happens.
Sometimes it happens. All right. Well,
so this snake map is really cool. So basically it shows all of the different states and they're proportionalized to their electoral votes. And it kind of has like a line down the middle of the 270 and which side like is going to win basically.
Yes.
And has the states kind of laid out. So right now they have, what's the exact number? Does it say? Does it say the margin for
yeah, it doesn't say here, but well, I'm sure we could deduce like
you could add it up.
270, that's 11, 29, that's 40, 45, 55, 70. So this would be like what, 390, something large.
So a lot, but I mean, again, those states, so Ohio, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Arizona, and Pennsylvania, those are all like swing votes that are favoring Biden right now, but they're all really small. Like, I mean, Ohio is 49.5 to 49, like literally tied.
Right. These are really close.
So it doesn't mean that Biden's a sure vote in those spots.
Yeah. So. These are kind of called the toss-up states.
Yep.
But it is important to know that they're at least leaning Biden at this time, a lot of these toss-ups.
Right.
So something that Jared and I have been thinking from the beginning, and it seems, or not the beginning, but we kind of summarized from the polls, is that if Trump wins, it'll probably be a close vote. He'll probably barely get over 270. And there's a lot of ways that Biden could win, like
pretty smashingly.
Again, yeah, assuming you're trusting the polling here. We can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But one of the scenarios where Trump wins is like he needs to win all of these toss-ups, basically. And then he needs to flip a couple of these light blue ones, like maybe Pennsylvania and Arizona. If those go red, that would be a good scenario for Trump. But something horrendous like losing Florida makes it really, really hard for him to win.
Right, because it's just, if Trump's margin of error is so small, like losing just one state, he has to win like 7 versus losing just 1. And, all those toss-up states, it's like odds are you're probably going to lose 1, and it's, that's it. So
something that I've seen Nate Silver talk about here on 538 is that you can sort of pick your own, where's that link where you can kind of pick your own map? How do I do it?
I don't know.
There's like a, here it is. Where basically
choose your battleground winners.
Yeah. And so something that you see happen. So like right now, these are like very light blue. Those would be leaning Biden. But if you say, okay, Trump is got like a 35% chance by 538's calculations of winning Florida, let's say he gets it, it also gives him a serious boost in all these other states.
Right, because odds are that if he's winning in one that they didn't think he might be. He might be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way he says it is the polls are correlated, right? So if we start to see that Trump is outperforming in Florida, it probably means he's going to outperform in other states, or that the margin of error has to shift. And that doesn't mean that like his odds are of 11% are not correct. Like it's still 11% at the end of the day, but like come Tuesday, if Florida does break for Trump, that gives him a big boost,
Right.
and things start to get a lot easier. So I think that's important to remember. But yeah, Trump is he's gonna need Florida. He's gonna probably need Pennsylvania and all those toss-ups. And
Yeah.
he really,
Like, even though you switch Florida and all those other states kind of switch, it's like it's still Biden's still gonna win. Oh my! What did you just click?
I just put it.
Oh, back to Florida. Yeah.
Florida to Biden.
His chance goes up to a 99%.
Yeah, things go really bad at that point. So.
Yep.
I definitely recommend you guys feel free to like go on 538, click around with a few things. I think at the end of the day, it, like we said, it's possible for Trump to win, but he's going to need, I think, the polls to be wrong in his favor, and then I think he's going to need a little bit of extra juice on top of that.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you feel like you trust the polls, Jared?
I would say yes. I'm not as jaded as I think. I think in 2016 I was trusting of the polls too, but it was within the margin of error, and a lot of people, or like it was still a high percentage that he could win, and I think there was a lot of momentum, and he ran a really strong campaign in the states that he needed to run. I mean, you look back at Hillary, and she didn't talk to any of these states that she didn't think she had any chance, or that she thought she had secured pretty well. And those last few weeks of the election, she was just like hanging out. And Trump was like pushing really, really hard. I don't think we see that. I still think he has a strong base, and I think they're going to show up and they're going to vote. But I just don't know if it's enough this time.
Yeah.
I could be wrong though. So
yeah, there's just so many factors like at play. I mean, you've got COVID to think about. There's all this mail-in stuff. I think a lot of voters are not enthusiastic about Biden, but they're very enthusiastic about getting Trump out of office. And I think a lot of Trump voters are enthusiastic about voting for Trump. Not all of them, obviously, but on the one hand, I'm like, oh, Trump voters are going to be more enthusiastic. They're going to be more likely to show up in a pandemic. They're going to be more likely to wait in long lines. Whereas Democrats might tend to be a little bit more fearful of COVID, might want to request a mail-in ballot, but then things get delayed. You forget to fill it out, and it gets lost in the mail, or you don't postmark it by the right day, or all of this stuff. Like we had talked about in the past, like voting by mail can be a little bit of a hassle, and it's not as easy as people make it out to be. You forget, and then it's too late to request it.
Right.
Yeah,
and I definitely, it'll be interesting for sure.
Right. Like I think the polls can account for some of this, but it seems like predicting all of the factors correctly,
especially
like a tall order.
Yeah, especially this year, like there's gonna be a lot of craziness. So I would say, like, also though, pretty much every media source, every like commercial you watch, every website you go on is like telling you to vote. I feel like even more so than 2016 did, and a lot of those are targeting for the more liberal people,
younger demographics.
Younger demographics that are more likely to vote Democrat, and so I think that
will definitely play a part.
That's going to play a factor too, and I think more young people are going to vote this time than they did in 2016. So
absolutely. Yep, and I know Biden, like a big part of his campaign has been trying to appeal to young voters, but also like wanting to appear moderate, and that's a delicate line because a lot of the young voters tend to be more further left and wanted to have Bernie Sanders and are unhappy with Biden and are not going to vote for either. Situations like that. So he really needs to get that young vote out, I think.
No, for sure.
So a red wave where Trump wins by a lot would basically mean the polls will never recover, right?
No, I think that's yeah. The no one is predicting that even close to like
Yeah,
the odds of that are so tiny and small according to the polls
right.
that we would just be
'Cause-
like, well, they're all wrong and we have a flawed system
yeah,
and who knows.
right. Because 2016 was an upset, and a lot of like there were some polls that were definitely wrong, and there
Right, especially some
were
local state polls that were like, oh, they really were asking the wrong people.
yeah, right, and they weren't accounting for education in a lot of polls, and like that ended up mattering a lot.
Yep.
And yeah, it's really interesting, but it's sort of in hindsight was kind of explainable. People were like, okay, yeah, like we talked about with Nate Silver, like, hey, there were people saying 30%. But if it happens this time in a big red wave, it won't be explainable.
Nope. It really won't.
So yeah, they'll have to figure that out. So that's why I think it's probably very unlikely. I think if Trump wins, like we said, it's going to be a very narrow margin. I think it's probably more likely that Biden's got it, but very silly, like we said, to say either way. And I think the other thing we wanted to talk about was some of the other external like scenarios revolving around contested election or what other scenarios could happen. Like we've heard a lot of people saying, oh, we might not know until December, we might not know until January, the Supreme Court might get involved. Like can break down a little bit of those possible scenarios as well.
Yeah, so I think we have talked a little bit about like, okay, when are we actually going to know the election results, right? Because with a lot of mail-in ballots, like that can be coming in later, and it's like, okay, so when are we going to know who wins? And so, yeah, I think we'll know by the end of the week, like 99% sure.
Right.
I think it's going to be either a really late night on election night or the next day before we have a pretty good idea. I don't think it's going to be like, 9, 10 p.m. We're like, oh, okay, yep, we're pretty confident.
Yeah. Unless it's a big blue wave.
Unless it's a really big blue wave and like he wins Florida pretty quickly. And
if he gets Texas, it's over.
Texas, it's really over. Which isn't out of the possibility. I've been reading about that this week, and it's like Texas is moving more and more blue, especially with all the influx in the last 4 years and the last 2 years of people from California, people from other, more liberal states that have come here.
Right. Yeah. I was looking the other day, like at some of the biggest cities in America, and so like number 4 is Houston. I think number 9 is Dallas, but I think number 7 was Houston or Austin or San Antonio. Like,
there's some big cities in there. They are, very blue. So
yeah, and they're growing like crazy. I mean, all the other comparable cities, like large top 10, top 15 cities, grow by a little bit, but the Texas ones were like growing by 10% in 10 years, and just like more than double a lot of the other growth rates of these comparable cities. So yeah, I mean, people are moving to Texas like crazy. So that is a serious demographic shift. For sure. So. Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. Like that would be a scenario we would know early. I think the scenarios where we see something that takes a long time is where we have a scenario where Trump has a lot of the early vote and in-person votes, and then we start to see the mail-in ballots trickle in, which tend to be more Democrats. We know Democrats have requested a lot more mail-in ballots. So as those come in, as those get counted, some states are different. We're going to look at this in a second, where how late does it have to be postmarked, or when can it arrive, all of this stuff. And that's, I think, the scenario where we could, like you said, wait until the end of the week as those come in and we start to see Biden catch up.
We think we're going to have kind of an interesting swing because all the early votes that are going to come in, like the early mail-in ballots, are going to come in and be like in favor of Biden because they're more likely to vote through early vote or through mail-in ballots. And then we'll kind of see a shift to Trump as everyone in person votes. And then we'll probably see a shift back to Biden.
Right.
I think it'll be an interesting little pendulum there.
Yeah, so I found this neat New York Times article. It's more of a spreadsheet, I guess. I'll go ahead and put that up. And it's talking about how long each state will take to count votes and sort of the timing of each state. So there's it's basically an Excel sheet and a table.
Right.
So you have your state, the timing of the results. Kind of this is sort of their like take on it. This is like their summary, and then here's some quick stats where it's like when the last polls closed in that state. Is it midnight, 8 p.m., 9, 8:30, 11? Like they're all different right here.
They're all different, which is why it takes so long at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. Yep. Type of ballots reported first. So like in Alabama, there's no particular order. Alaska, they're doing early in-person and election day ballots, and then the mail-in ballots are allowed to come in later, so those will be a bit later. And then the last one is, so can postmarked ballots arrive later, and then do those who request a mail ballot but vote in person instead cast a provisional ballot. What does this actually mean? Do those who request mail-in ballot but vote in person instead cast a provisional ballot?
So I think it's like if you request one and then you end up voting in person. I don't know. I don't know what the provisional ballot is. I think we
guess
just
that
ignore that for
means
now.
you're allowed to vote, but like if it's not going to get counted until later
When you send in,
because they have to make sure you didn't vote twice.
Oh, yes, that's probably right. Also, what's interesting about the Alaska one, it says postmarked ballots can arrive by November 13th, but no mail-in ballots can be counted until the 10th.
Wow.
So they won't even start counting them till the 10th?
Well, the important thing to remember about Alaska is it never really matters.
I know, it's just really interesting. Because they're going to be like, a week later, like, oh yeah, but we're just starting to count our next ballots.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. The ones that are going to matter are like the toss-up states that we talked about.
Yep.
Like it doesn't, if Alaska has a weird one, well, I guess that's weird, but it's small and it's already leaning Republican or likely.
Right. It's likely to be Republican. It always has been. Yeah. So
if there's any controversy or delays, it probably won't be at the hands of Alaska.
Yeah, and that may be how they always do it, and I just didn't.
Yeah. Right. So Arizona, that's a big swing state. Trump's going to need to win that to bring it home. They're going to be counting early votes in person and mail-in ballots arriving before Election Day, and postmarked ballots cannot arrive later. So
we'll probably know that evening for Arizona.
Yeah. Officials are not predicting the share of ballots that were reported by Wednesday. A new law allows officials to count mail-in votes starting 2 weeks before the election. So we're well into that.
They can start counting them. They're already counting them now, so that they can something that night.
So that's why it says are likely to be relatively stronger for Mr. Biden, because those early votes and the mail-in ballots are probably, like we said, more likely to be Democrat, more likely to be counted first. These don't really matter. These are all likely one way or the other. Florida's a toss-up. Definitely, like we said, this is going to be a huge one. All early voting and previously tabulated mail ballots, which are likely to be strong for Mr. Biden, should be reported by 8:30. So that'll be like right away. Polls closed at 8, most at 7. Officials did not make a projection for the timing of full unofficial results, but they were allowed to process early routing ballots starting weeks before the election. They've already started counting these. So as soon as this rolls around at 8 or 8:30, we should see a big swing for Biden, and then those November 3rd votes might push back towards Trump. So.
Yep. Georgia's a toss-up. Yep. Iowa's a toss-up.
Oh, I skipped Georgia.
I skipped Georgia, which I think there's probably not going to be as many mail-in ballots there, but
right. And I definitely don't want to feel like we have to read all of these, but yeah, it could take a couple days to be standard value.
Secretary of State says he expects November 4th to. Yeah, see, this is what I'm saying about like
2 days later. Yeah,
about 2 days. I think we're so used to election nights knowing who's going to win, and like,
right,
it may not be the case.
Yeah, it got called so late in 2016. Did you stay up for it, the whole thing?
Yeah.
I did too. I didn't plan to, but
No,
then
I didn't
when,
either because it just kept happening, and I was like, "Wait, could he actually win? Could or could Trump actually win?" And it was like,
yeah,
I had to stay up to find out what happened. I know
yeah,
so many people that went to bed though thinking that Trump had
it
lost.
was
I woke up.
right.
What?
That was a bizarre day.
Yes,
The
wild.
next day, like, I mean, we were both in college, like, nothing got done in any of the classes. Like,
No, everyone was just talking about it. Like, yeah,
yeah,
it was so wild.
yeah. I was in calculus 3 at like 10 in the morning, and we spent the whole class talking about the election. And then, like, it got to where we were like 10 minutes left in the class. We hadn't done any math. And the professor was just like, well, if no one has any more election stuff, we have to talk about calculus. And then someone was like, I have a question about election stuff. And he was like, oh, good. Because he definitely did prepare a lecture that day. Oh my gosh.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
It was, yeah, really funny.
Man.
Iowa, confident they'll have unofficial results in a timely fashion like we do for every. Did these guys not think we remembered
yeah, just a few
this
months
year?
ago.
Yeah.
Oh, Iowa. What are you doing?
Oh,
I have some friends in Iowa, and I gave them so much crap at the primaries because how the disaster it was. Oh, so fun.
Caucus is such a weird thing. Like they all meet in a room and stand in different corners. Like
weird.
And then they try to get people to come to their corner.
One of the strangest things, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, they messed up before. So, but I don't think they're doing all that weird app stuff.
Yeah. To do, much more standard. Yep. But postmark ballots can arrive by November 9th, so it could contribute to a little bit of delay if it does come to be very close, like we talked about. And I think a lot of like potential disputes down the road when people think about the Supreme Court and contested election would be for stuff like this, like, well, if something gets lost and then it arrives, like when does that get counted? Or, okay, maybe someone ends up winning Iowa, but one of the candidates could say, well, the law was changed like sometime close, like who knows? Like, I feel like if it happens, it'll be around these mail-in votes.
For sure.
All right, what other big states? There's Texas, North Carolina,
and Ohio.
Early votes and mail ballots can be stronger for Biden, and then
election day results will be for Trump. Yep, pretty typical. They can arrive by November 12th.
So a lot of these big states are expecting to be able to report by election night.
Yeah, I think a lot of the swing states hopefully will not. But Ohio says all ballots arriving after Election Day reported by November 28th. That's a long ways away.
That is a long way away. And Ohio's significant.
So, although probably the share of that votes may not matter, especially if they can call it pretty quick, so it's like, okay, they will technically count those, but they may not actually matter for the day.
Right.
I'm just curious to see what, like, the candidates themselves, like, call their races.
Yeah.
Because I can easily see Trump that night, if he has a strong lead, just being like, yep, we won. And then so that if he ends up losing later, he can contest it. I think that'll be really interesting to watch for on Election Day.
Yeah, absolutely. But it does seem to me, as we sort of flip through these, that Biden is the one that's expected to have the early leads.
Right, but if Trump, by the end of the night, so like let's say at 1 a.m., all the in-person come in and Trump has like a lead, and then the swing back with the mail-in ballots. So
I get what you're saying, but I still feel like a lot of the mail-in ballots are getting counted first.
That's true.
But you're right. There will be a later push for some of these that'll allow them to come later.
Yeah, we'll see.
So I guess it'll be just like a wave.
Yep.
Very strange. This is a crazy time we live in.
It is wild for sure. It's fun for someone. Yeah, I think it's just, if you like politics, and especially, I'm sure you can feel jaded, but in my studies, like I was taught to look at politics from a very empirical standpoint, and so like all of this is just more like fascinating to me, and
as
opposed to like, oh, what are the what will this mean for the country? You know,
Right.
It's important too, but
Right. It's sort of separate. Like,
yes.
There's like a factual, like clinical way, and then like the emotional, personal way.
Right.
All right. Texas, no estimate was provided for the share. That will be reported by Wednesday because an excuse is required to vote by mail in Texas. Officials do not think that processing those votes will result in delays. Though increased turnout could. So that's interesting. Texas not allowing people to vote by mail unless they have an excuse.
Yep. No, yeah, no one really can. So you have to go in. I think I talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Virginia, likely election day. They're doing election day in-person votes first, which could lean towards Trump, and then as the night goes on, swing back towards Biden. So that's sort of opposite the way we've seen a few of them.
Right, which makes sense because Virginia's, going to be probably go for Biden, most likely.
Yeah. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers said he expects to know the results on election night or by the day after at the latest. These elections.
Trump would hope he can win Wisconsin, but it's not super likely.
Yeah, so that's the end of that. Wild. So I guess, I don't know. I feel like my takeaway is if the polls are very accurate and Biden is leading by what he's leading by, then we'll probably know by election day that Biden's got it. If Trump is the one that wins and the polls were underperforming for him, that's where we see probably a later decision because he's probably going to win by a narrower amount, and we're going to have to wait for those ballots to come in.
Yeah, I think if we see there are enough swing states that favor or that like we'll know by the end of election night, we'll know if Biden wins or not. But I think if Trump keeps winning them and it's like, oh, I don't know, these other three that haven't announced yet in the next few days, like,
yeah,
it'll be interesting.
So here's my next question. How late are you going to stay up on Tuesday, November 3rd? How late are you willing to stay up?
Probably 1, 2. I mean, like, I've got work, but yeah.
You can skip a few hours and drink a coffee, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, you're doing it every night. Like, it's election night.
Right.
So.
It's election night. You're allowed to come in like this in the morning.
I feel like I'll stay up to like 1 and then see. And then if it's like, they probably know the next hour, stay up later. But if it's, I don't know.
See, that sounds good in principle, Jared. Like, you're like, 1, but then 1 comes and they're like, we're getting really close to calling it on Florida.
Oh, then I'll definitely stay up.
You're like, I'll stay up for another 30 minutes. And they're like, we still don't know. And you're like, okay, another 30 minutes. I feel like.
Yeah, see, that's the question, like, because then it might be we still don't know for several days.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the latest I would stay up is probably 2:30.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah, plus, like, I'm on the East Coast, too, so it's even later for me than you. But, yeah, if they're still undecided by 2:30, I'm like, yeah, see you in the morning. But
yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to be with some work people, so, like, maybe as long as we're all staying up.
Yeah.
Like, then we can not go into work till later, like be in solidarity together, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Oh man.
Cool. Well, anything else?
I think that's all I got. I'm looking forward to election night. So
awesome. I got a recommendation for us really quick.
What you got?
You guys have probably seen it. It's been everywhere. This show, Queen's Gambit on Netflix, is my recommendation for today. I'll go ahead and share my screen just so like we can see some of the promotional materials. So yeah, this came out, I don't know, last week.
Yeah, just recently.
Yeah, really recently, 3 days ago. It's a Netflix original series. It's based on a novel. I don't want to click on anything.
Anna Taylor-Joy, right? She's great.
Oh, is that the actress?
Yeah, I've seen her in a couple of different things. She's really
I'm out of the loop. I'm sure I've seen her in something, but Yeah, Catherine and I started it like 2 or 3 days ago. It's really good. I think there's 7 episodes. They're about an hour long. It's about her story. She's like, I mean, it's fiction, but she is like an orphan who gets really into chess. And I haven't finished it, so if it ends terribly, you can come back and yell at me. But
Okay, sounds good.
so far, it's been really good. It kind of gives me like Stranger Things vibes. Like it's like a drama. It's about this young girl at the beginning, and she kind of has this tragic past. And
yeah, it sounds really interesting. I'm always down for a good Netflix show. I'm finishing up True Detective right now, the first season, so that might be my next show. So
yeah. And obviously, I'm recommending this because there's a lot of chess. They did a fantastic job with the chess, by the way. Too.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you. Like, is it like, because when you hear about things that involve chess, you're like, okay, are they actually going to play chess, or is it very, movie-ized, or Hollywood?
Yeah, no, they've done a good job. Like this, the the show takes place in like the 50s, 60s era. So they did a really good job keeping like the chess like true to that time, and they talk about some of the games and they show a lot of action scenes. Like it's definitely not very technical or whatever, but for like a chess nerd, it's exciting to see them do it justice. And the other kind of chess blockbuster was Pawn Sacrifice with Tobey Maguire. I don't know if you ever saw that.
No, I never saw it, but I knew about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of about Bobby Fischer and his match with Boris Spassky, but it had like some effort to be good about the chess, but then there was some where you were like, okay, this is not like if you didn't know, you wouldn't catch it. But they did a really good job with Queen's Gambit.
Cool.
So I recommend it for anyone. It's pretty good.
All right. Well, I think that draws us to a close. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Next week when we see you guys, the election will be decided? ?
Yes. So I think it'll be interesting to talk. We may record a little earlier if it's like, we're still waiting just to see,
Yep. Absolutely. But yeah, I can guarantee you next episode we'll just be talking about the election. So that'll be a good time.
What if we just didn't talk about the election at all? We just
we just like moved on.
Didn't happen.
We're like, let's talk about steak this weekend.
I like some surf and turf. So like you talk about steak, I'll talk about shrimp. It'll be perfect.
Boom. And then we suddenly work it all into where like steak represents the Republicans.
Whoa.
We'll be like, no, I think I've had steak in Florida. It's really good in Florida.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right. Ramblings. Okay. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Go ahead and outro us, Jared.
Yeah. So we are on Facebook as Critical Conversations. We are on Pocket Casts and YouTube and Spotify and Google Podcasts. Most other places you can find us. Be sure to follow us on Facebook if you want, like,
give us a subscribe on YouTube.
Yes.
I think we're up to like 30 subscribers or something.
Yeah, 30 subscribers. Pretty exciting.
Thank you for subscribing.
Click the bell icon, people say do that.
Do not click the bell icon.
That's what YouTubers always say.
Right? That's true.
Anyway, thanks for joining us, guys.
Yes.
We'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys.